St. Katharine Drexel. St. Katharine Drexel was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on November 26, 1858. She was born into a wealthy religious family. Her mother passed away when she was very young, so she lived with her two older sisters, her father, and her stepmother. Because Katharine was born into a religious family, she grew up praying and being faithful from a young age. She saw her father pray daily, and her stepmother help out the poor by welcoming them into their house for meals and showers. The Drexels were very wealthy, but they never let that get to them. They were a very faith-driven family. Because Katharine grew up around her father and her stepmother helping others, she decided she wanted to do the same. Katharine came to the realization she wanted to help others when she was on a trip to different states. She saw how much minorities were suffering and receiving no help, so she wanted to help them in any way that she could. Katharine's father set up in his will that she and her sisters would get a certain amount of money when he passed. When Katharine's father passed away, she and her sisters received that money. They all decided to donate some of it to the St. Francis Mission of South Dakota's Rosebud Reservation. After donating that money, Katharine realized she wanted to continue giving more to her community. Her mission was to help others through God's call. She spent many years on her mission to become a mother, and after that time, she became Mother Katharine and established the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament for Indians and Colored. She dedicated the rest of her time and money to work in this ministry. Through this ministry and the help of her fellow sisters, she opened many schools and organizations. One of the schools, Xavier University in New Orleans, was the first Catholic school to open to African Americans. She sadly passed away on March 3, 1955, after dedicating her life to helping others. She left behind a ministry that is still active today. She is remembered for her work of creating equal opportunities for everyone, especially minority groups. She is a great role model for young children today. Katharine Drexel was beatified on November 20th, 1988. She was canonized as a saint on October 1st, 2000. Both the beatification and the canonization were done by Pope John Paul II. She was the second American-born saint to be canonized and is the patron saint of racial justice and philanthropists. St. Katharine Drexel is a model of Christian life because she wanted equality for all. She wanted to make minority voices heard and used what she had to do that. She never let her family's wealth take over her relationship with God. Instead, she used that money to serve God and create open opportunities for Indian and African Americans. She lived out the corporal and spiritual works of mercy daily and is remembered today for her great work. St. Elizabeth Ann Seton. St. Elizabeth Ann Seton was born on August 28, 1774, in New York. She grew up in the upper middle class of New York. She lost her mother at a young age, so she lived with her father. Elizabeth lived a quiet, simple life, reading many books to pass her free time. She found comfort in reading stories, especially the Bible. Even though she was not Catholic, she enjoyed reading the scriptures and the parables in the Bible. Many years later, she married a wealthy young man named William Seton. She was very happy in her relationship with William. A couple years into their marriage, William's father passed away, leaving behind his business and William's siblings. William and Elizabeth were able to handle this by taking care of his siblings. They tried to keep the business alive, but it would not last very long. Not long after William's father's death, William became sick with tuberculosis. It was hard for him to take care of himself and the business, so he filed the business for bankruptcy. Him and Elizabeth traveled to Italy. During their trip in Italy, William sadly passed away due to tuberculosis. While going through all of these hardships, Elizabeth became closer with God. These deaths and personal battles led her to a closer relationship with God and what she called his will. While she was in Italy, she found the Catholic Church. She felt a strong connection to the Church, especially to the Blessed Mother. She found the Blessed Mother to be a prominent figure in the Church, and she was very drawn to her. Elizabeth officially joined the Church in 1805. After a couple months in Italy, she traveled back to the United States and talked with the president of St. Mary's College in Baltimore, Maryland. The president suggested the idea that she should start a school in Baltimore. Elizabeth took that idea and made it happen, opening the first free Catholic school in America. On March 25, 1809, Elizabeth dedicated her life to the Church and became Mother Seton. She continued to grow her community after this. Even though Elizabeth was sick with tuberculosis, she was able to help ratify the rule of the sisterhood in 1812. During that time, she was able to establish 2 schools and 2 orphanages to help others. She sadly passed away on January 4th, 1821. Elizabeth Ann Seton was beatified on March 17, 1963 by Pope John XXII. She was then canonized by Pope Paul V on September 14, 1975. She was the first canonized saint born in the United States. Saint Elizabeth Ann Seton is a patron saint against the death of parents and children. She is also the patron saint of widows. Saint Elizabeth Ann Seton is a model of Christian life because she followed God's call. She did not grow up very religious and went through many hardships and heartbreaks throughout her life. Even with all the hard times, she listened to God's call and joined the Catholic Church. Nothing stopped her on her journey through her faith. There were many times in her life when she questioned God, but she always stayed faithful. Saint Elizabeth shows us that we should also always stay faithful to God. She proved that we should always be open to God and His plan for us.